Welcome back to Real Talk with Brian and Dan. I'm Dan.
I'm Brian. Hey, we have Wade Pennington with us today. 40 years in the real estate industry, first as an agent, and the last 26 years as my inspector of choice, the owner of Inspection Services Northwest. Wade also owns a real estate investment company. Please welcome to the show, Wade Pennington. Hey, before we get started, Wade, tell us about yourself. Hobbies, outside of work, what do you like to do?
Golf.
Golf. There you go.
I have 2 in a row on golf.
It's a theme.
That's right.
There we go.
Yeah. I also like to build things, cabinets. Spend a lot of time in the garage building anything I can out of wood. So those are my 2 hobbies when I get a chance. Mostly golf, though.
Mostly golf. Where do you like to golf?
Well, I belong to Rainier.
Oh, nice.
So I do have a built-in club I go to quite frequently, but I do like to travel all over the place. We've got some great golf courses in the Pacific Northwest.
I golfed. My grandfather golfed. I couldn't pick it up. It takes so much time. My life with kids came along. I like being married to my wife, and so I just could not figure out the time to put that hobby into my life. But it's one that I think is really I would love to explore. I'd love to take the time because I love being outdoors, getting up early, crack of dawn, teeing off. I could do that. Not right now, but someday. That's my someday goal. So because this is a show about real estate, we always ask this question of our guests and visitors. Tell us of a memory that you can kind of go back to in your childhood in the home that you grew up in.
Well, it was very special. Of course, I think most people's first houses probably are, but in my case, it kind of got me where I am because my parents built the house right before I was born.
Wow.
And my uncle gave them the lot, and then the rest of my uncles and my dad and my mom built the house. And so it not only was a house, it was really, truly built for us, and it was extremely special to everybody in the family. And from that point on, thinking about it in the past now, it's that I never had the thought that I wouldn't own a home.
Mm-hmm.
It was just inherent at that point that because they had built themselves a home and had created that for us, that I would do the same. And I really got fascinated by construction. My favorite part of the house was the basement, and it was unfinished. And I liked it because I could see the structure. And didn't know what I was looking at the time probably, but, the plumbing and the wiring.
But it was your first inspection.
There you go. There you go. That's right.
So, Wade, tell us, why use an inspector?
Well, it's consumer protection. And, I think that we get a little bit hemmed in thinking that it's buyer protection when, in fact, it's not. It's everyone's protection. We think about the liability issues inherent in selling something that's really expensive, and there are a lot. And it also, sellers, we seem to think that we know a lot about our houses, but I can tell you from experience that we really don't. Unless we are an inspector, then we might. But other than that, most sellers, when we come back, let's say on a pre-list inspection and we have a list of items, 99% of the time the seller is not aware that those items exist. And, the first time that happened years ago when we first started doing pre-lists, I was a little amazed. I thought, how can you live in that house and not know? Most people don't have the technical skills, of course, that an inspector or even a real estate agent would have to spot these items. And it is amazing what people can live in that don't have that knowledge, that just simply have a home that they live in, can walk by every day and not know that it could be a major problem or maybe a major safety hazard. So, the reason to get them is so that everyone in the transaction can be protected, whether that's the new family moving into their home and making sure that the family is protected, or the seller protecting themselves from any liability issues that they weren't aware of when they
as I think of the arm's length transaction, the whole idea is let's all know what we need to know and then make an offer based on everything we know. And I'm not interested in going in my crawl space and not interested in going in my attic. And most people don't want to do that, don't do the dirty work, right? What differentiates, like, having your friend who's a contractor versus an inspector come over and look at the house? What's the difference, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, really, a contractor builds things. They know how to do it right and how to build it right. What they don't understand is defect recognition. Our job is what happens when something fails, or what are the indications that something may be failing, or the indication that something's at the end of its effective life. So it's completely the opposite, really, when you think about it. The contractor knows how to put it together. We know how to determine if it's falling apart. And that really is our job. Where is it on its life cycle? Is it likely to fail? Is it likely to cause a safety hazard? Those are really the components of an inspection. So when we look at a house, we are in our minds deconstructing it, whereas the contractor would be constructing it.
Oh.
And so the contractor can see those things on the surface. Oh, it looks like it's built right. The spans seem right. There's no cracks, these basic premises. But the inspector is looking at it completely differently, looking at it from the side of, Does this make sense? Has it held up? How old is it? What was its life expectancy? What are the most common failures to that component? Like any other job, I mean, you take your car to a mechanic, you can certainly tell them it's making noise, but you have no idea why it's wrong. That's the same thing.
Sometimes I'll have an inspector talk about, it's not you, so I'm curious about your perspective, talk code. Like this is not to code or this, and tell me your perspective on that kind of comment.
So code construction isn't something that the inspector is looking for one reason. Well, I shouldn't say he's not looking for it, but he's not looking for it in most houses because the code changed over years.
Right.
So we may have a house that's 100 years old. Well, certainly it's going to have different standards that it was built to than a house that's built in the last few years. So when we look at new construction, we may in fact be looking at current code. We would word it more in safety. So in my team, we look at it more in the terms of safety, or there's another standard out there that everyone understands, and that's industry standard. So if we look at a component and say, maybe it didn't meet current code, but it was industry standard at the time it was built, then it's not a defect.
Right.
But if I look at a brand new house and then it's not built to current code, then it would be defective. So there's a lot of variation in how that works. So an inspector needs to be versed in code. But any inspector that goes back to an old home and expects it to meet code or is calling something else out to bring it to code, then they're gone beyond the scope, and it's not reasonable to expect an older home to meet current standards.
All right. So then what are the risks to writing an offer without inspecting a home and waiving that inspection?
Well, when the market got really hot, this time was the first time in my career that I've seen an industry decide that the protections that were in place to protect the consumer should be waived because it was a hot market. That didn't make much sense to me at all. And what we got then was a rash of phone calls from people that had bought in their house and moved in, and then said, hey, I need to have this inspected because I moved in and I'm seeing A, B, C, and D. And sure enough, we go out there and get the typical list that we do. Out of 100 homes inspected, we may have 2 that have no repairs. So there are always repairs on homes, and they come from the minor issue up to the major issue. You do not know what you're getting.
Plus, I've seen, if one inspector inspects the house, another one comes along, right? These multiple offers will have pre-inspections. They're finding different things.
Yes. Yeah, it
Because
is true.
we all look at things a little differently.
Well, my industry, unfortunately or fortunately, is a lot of independent contractors.
Yeah.
And it does create a lot of variation in the industry. One of the things that I've done, because I have a team of inspectors, and I decided a long time ago, is that we had to have a very specific reason for doing what we're doing. There is really elimination of gray matter, and it goes back to what I've already talked about, which is industry standards.
Gray area or gray matter?
They need to have a lot of gray matter in the gray area.
So you mentioned the changing market where people are waiving inspections. So I've seen a lot more sellers moving towards seller pre-inspections. What's your take on seller having a pre-inspection?
I was promoting them long before the industry decided it was a good idea. And I'll tell you, I really do think they're an excellent idea. And they can be used in many different ways as a positive tool in a transaction. What makes most transactions not move to closing is not the defects found during an inspection. It's the emotional process that the purchaser goes through with those findings. So if we can get in a circumstance where we have preemptively taken care of a lot of the issues, or at least disclose them so that they're not a shock when they find out about them, you eliminate that emotional process that they go through. I've seen transactions fail for $50 worth of repairs simply because of the emotional process.
Right.
And as an inspector, I look there and shake my head and wonder why that would be. Well, it's an emotional impact, especially if you're going to move your family into that home. It becomes a big issue for you. Or you look at it as brand new, and then there's a defect. That has a huge emotional impact on people.
Yep.
So the other side of that, of course, is that you can eliminate all liability for a seller with a good inspection if it's handled properly. Because if you do disclose everything, and you don't need to fix it necessarily, disclose it.
Right.
You have full disclosure at this point. Lay it on the table. Make everyone aware of it. It eliminates the negotiation process and that tooth pulling, shall we say, that it goes through in the process of trying to get to closing. Particularly for minor items.
Yeah, with our premier listing program, Brian and I pre-inspect every house that we put on the market. We advise our clients to pre-inspect their house before it goes on the market. Okay, so what is not covered in the inspection process?
Great question. Really anything that we can't see. So if we can't determine it by visual inspection or with some of the technology, which we'll talk about in a minute, then it is, in fact, excluded from the report. And our exclusion list is fairly long because if you think about it, I can't see any wall cavities. I can't see any place that my body or my eyeballs can't get. So there are a lot of things that are excluded in that sense. Now, That's where training comes in. The most important part of an experienced inspector isn't just simply being through so many houses that there's an intuitive sense. It's like anyone else in a job. If you do it long enough, your intuition increases. So if you've got an inspector with a lot of experience and a lot of inspections under their belt, they don't have to see everything to know it's there.
Something's going on.
Something's going on.
Right.
And then we can use the technology to determine, was that intuition correct or not?
Well, let's hear about the technology.
So infrared inspections is the biggest thing that's changed in the years that I've been in the inspection. So an infrared camera is extremely sensitive, and the best way to explain it is temperature differential, although it's not really using that. It's very scientific. It's using the mass of a component to determine whether or not there's a defect. But that shows up in the camera as a temperature reading. And they're so sensitive that if I touch my finger to sheetrock for a thousandth of a second, literally just as quick as I can touch it, the camera will pick up that temperature differential. So what it shows us is what's going in and on inside the wall cavities. And even that's not scientifically put, but it's the best way to put it for laymen because we still can't see in the wall. So we need to be aware we really can't see in the wall.
Right.
But at the same time, it does give us an indication if we have any anomalies within a building component that we can't see into. And then it'll prompt us to say there has to be destructive testing or something else done to determine the extent of the defect. So we can locate the defect with the thermal imaging. From there, it needs to be taken to destructive
So
testing.
what type of defect would that typically be?
It can be anything from most commonly water migration issues, a lot of plumbing leaks. And a lot of times we find plumbing leaks that have been in place for a long time. You can have a plumbing leak under a bathtub, let's say. It's a good example, in a ceiling. And you look up at the ceiling, it looks perfectly fine. Maybe a 20-year-old house, we do an infrared scan after running and draining the tub, and we find water. When they pull out that sheetrock, they find substantial mold and decay, and it looks perfectly fine on the outside. That's a prime example of what it's used for, and that's the most common probably. But it'll also show electrical defects, and electrical is the one that's the biggest safety hazard in the house. You're not likely to drown in your house from the plumbing components, but you can certainly kill yourself with the electrical. So it's really important that we see any shorts that are occurring, or any of the issues related to the wiring inside the walls that's been pinched or somehow created a short within the wiring shows up with the thermal camera.
So Wade, also I've heard a lot of the sewer scoping going on. Do you guys do sewer scopes?
We do sewer scopes. Yes.
So what is that, and who needs a sewer scope? Everybody, or what?
Well, we would say in most cases houses over 40 years or houses that have a lot of trees. Because the trees do break into the plumbing. Modern plumbing components, the plastic that they use now is less susceptible to the damage than the old clay tile that they used because it doesn't have the separations. So the newer the house, the less likely to have the damage, unless, again, you've got a lot of tree roots because they can damage anything. The sewer scope used to be an area that we had to completely exclude because no one was doing sewer scopes as a pre-purchase inspection. Now they're becoming extremely common, and we do see a lot of big defects. The biggest thing with the sewer line, and again, we're talking about the line from inside the house underground to the street and to connect it to the main. It's an area that is completely hidden from view. There's just no way to have any idea, and it's an extremely expensive component to repair. So it's one of those things that, again, we'd always had to exclude simply because we couldn't get to it.
See it.
And then, we'd hear about people having $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 or more in repairs after moving in. Now, we do a lot of functional testing in the house, and if it's in severe condition when we get there, they may have a toilet that doesn't flush. But a lot of times you can have substantial damage that's about to create a major issue that no one would be aware of without a sewer scope.
Right. So, Wade, as we wrap up here, tell us how our listeners can reach you.
Google me, for one thing, Wade Pennington. I'm everywhere on Google, fortunately.
Wow.
Inspection Services Northwest is the company name, and inspectionservicesnorthwest.com or wadepennington.com will get you to the website.
And there's somebody there pretty much any time can answer and route you through to you or to one of your technicians. Yeah?
That is correct, yeah. The phone number is 206-241-8087.
All right, so you can Google Wade. You can look for Inspection Services Northwest. You can call Brian, right?
You bet.
You can call our team. We'd be happy to connect you with Wade. So that concludes our interview with Wade Pennington of Inspection Services Northwest. Coming up next is a little more, we're getting a little in the weeds, which is actually great. And guess what? He's a golfer too. Oh my gosh, it's a full golf deal. So next up is Michael Abrahamson. He's with Rainier Title and Escrow. So come on back right after this break.